While America debates its decline, one nation just pulled off the greatest economic heist of the 21st century, and most people have no idea it even happened. I'm talking about India. And before you click away thinking this is another geopolitics lecture, let me ask you something. Have you noticed your tech support calls getting clearer? Your generic medications getting cheaper? Your job listings disappearing? That's not coincidence. That's strategy. Recently, Piers Morgan sat down with experts who broke down exactly how India is quietly outmaneuvering not just America, but the entire Western world. What they revealed will fundamentally change how you see the global economy. But before we dive in, if you're new here, hit the subscribe button and leave a comment. I subscribe. And I'll personally welcome you into the family. With that said, let's get started. Meet Sarah. 34 years old. Seattle software engineer. 6 years at a Fortune 500 company. $180,000 salary. In March 2024, her manager called her into a conference room and said those dreaded words. "We're restructuring." 2 weeks later, Sarah discovered her replacement. Not a person, the team. In Bangalore. 5 engineers doing her job for what she made alone. The math was brutal. One American salary now paid 5 Indian professionals, with money left over. Sarah's not alone. According to Gartner Research's 2024 report, India now controls 55% of the global IT outsourcing market. In 2019, that number was 38%. That's a 17-point jump in just 5 years. An economic tidal wave most Americans never saw coming. But here's what's terrifying. MIT Technology Review published a study in January 2024 that found 4.2 million American tech jobs are currently at risk of offshore displacement. That's not a prediction. That's an active countdown. And it gets worse. These aren't just call center jobs anymore. We're talking software architects making $200,000. Data scientists pulling $175,000. Senior developers earning $190,000. All being replaced by equally skilled professionals in India working for a fraction of the cost. The kicker? Most of these Indian engineers were trained by American companies. Google, Microsoft, Amazon all set up training centers in India over the past decade. They created their own competition. You might be thinking, hey, outsourcing isn't new. We've known about this for decades. You're right. But outsourcing? That's just the surface. What India's really doing will shock you. For the first time in 40 years, more Indian engineers are leaving Silicon Valley than arriving. Let that sink in. The American dream, the idea that the best and brightest would always come here, is reversing. Meet Raj Malhotra, former senior engineer at Google. $320,000 salary in Mountain View, California. In 2023, he quit. Moved back to Hyderabad. His new salary? $95,000. You're probably thinking, that's insane. Why would he take a 70% pay cut? Because his cost of living dropped by 75%. His 3-bedroom apartment in Hyderabad costs what a parking space costs in San Francisco. His quality of life tripled. He's closer to family. Here's the kicker, India's tech scene is exploding so fast that his career prospects actually improved. Raj told reporters he was spending $4,500 a month just on rent in California. In Hyderabad? $600. His groceries dropped from $800 a month to $200. Gas, entertainment, dining out, everything costs a fraction of what it did in America. He went from living paycheck to paycheck despite a 6-figure salary to saving 60% of his income. But it's not just about money. Raj said something that should terrify American policymakers. He said, back in California, I felt like a worker. In Hyderabad, I feel like an innovator. According to Stanford Migration Lab's 2023 research, this reverse brain drain has cost the U.S. economy $87 billion in intellectual capital since 2020. That's not just money. That's knowledge, innovation, and patents walking out the door. And it's accelerating. In 2022, 35,000 Indian professionals returned home from the US. In 2023, that number jumped to 52,000. Early projections for 2024 suggest it could hit 70,000. Imagine training the world's best minds, funding their education through your tax dollars, only to watch them build empires that compete against you. India's tech hubs, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, are now producing unicorn startups at rates that rival Silicon Valley. Same talent, same ambition, fraction of the cost. In 2023 alone, India produced 108 unicorn companies. That's startups valued at over $1 billion. The US produced 127. The gap is closing fast. But the real genius move isn't about people. It's about power. Here's a fact that should terrify every American. India produces 60% of your generic drug supply. Think about that. More than half of the medications keeping Americans alive are manufactured on the other side of the planet. Meet Tom Henderson, 67 years old, type 2 diabetic from Columbus, Ohio. In 2021, his insulin was costing him $340 per month, even with insurance. He was rationing doses, skipping injections, praying his blood sugar wouldn't spike. Tom's doctor told him he was playing Russian roulette with his life. But what choice did he have? He was on a fixed income. Social Security didn't cover his medication costs. He was choosing between insulin and groceries. Then in 2022, Indian pharmaceutical companies flooded the US market with generic alternatives. Tom's cost dropped to $47 per month. India literally saved his life. But here's the dark side of that dependency. In March 2020, during the first wave of COVID-19, India briefly restricted pharmaceutical exports to secure domestic supply. Within 72 hours, American hospitals went into panic mode. Critical medications, antibiotics, painkillers, anesthetics, were projected to run out within weeks. The FDA held emergency meetings. State governors started hoarding supplies. Some hospitals implemented triage protocols for who would get medication first if supplies ran out. India lifted the restriction, but the message was sent. We hold the keys to your survival. Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security published a report in December 2023 that identified a critical vulnerability in U.S. medical supply chains. 14 essential medicines, drugs you probably have in your cabinet right now, are almost entirely dependent on Indian production. We're talking about basic antibiotics like amoxicillin, blood pressure medications like lisinopril, antidepressants like sertraline, painkillers like ibuprofen and acetaminophen. If India decided tomorrow to stop exporting pharmaceuticals, the American healthcare system would collapse within 30 days. That's not hyperbole. That's documented fact from the Department of Health and Human Services. It's a beautiful paradox, isn't it? India saves American lives while simultaneously holding leverage over American survival. And they're not stopping. Indian pharma companies are now moving into specialized drugs, cancer treatments, HIV medications, biologics, the areas where America thought it had a monopoly. You think that's concerning? Wait until you hear about the digital invasion. While America was busy perfecting credit cards and arguing over transaction fees, India built something that changed everything. UPI, Unified Payments Interface. Here's the insane part. India's UPI now processes more digital transactions than the United States, United Kingdom, and Germany combined. I'm not exaggerating. In January 2025 alone, UPI processed 12.2 billion transactions. America's Venmo and Zelle? About 200 million combined. That's 61 times more transactions. But here's why it matters. UPI is instant. It's free. It's seamless. A street vendor selling chai in Mumbai can accept digital payments faster and easier than a Starbucks in Manhattan. Think about that. A guy with a cart on the side of the road in India has better payment technology than most American businesses. While American fintech companies were monetizing transaction fees and building walled gardens, India made digital payments a public utility. No transaction fees. No waiting periods. No complicated setups. Just instant, free money transfers. My friend visited India last year. She told me she didn't use cash once in 2 weeks. She paid for everything with UPI. street food, taxis, hills, shopping, even temple donations. Everything was digital. Compare that to America, where half the small businesses still say cash only, and the other half charge you extra for using a card. And now they're exporting it. UPI is expanding to 10 countries. UAE, Singapore, France, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Nepal, Mauritius. India's digital infrastructure is becoming the global standard, and most Americans have never even heard of it. The World Bank's Digital Economy Report from 2024 called UPI the most revolutionary fintech infrastructure of the decade. Not Apple Pay. Not cryptocurrency. Not blockchain. UPI. They didn't just copy Western technology. They leapfrogged it entirely. Google tried to acquire UPI's technology. They offered billions. India said no. This is ours. Facebook tried to integrate WhatsApp Pay with UPI. India said yes, but on our terms. You play by our rules. That's power. That's leverage. That's the future of digital finance, and India owns it. But here's where it gets geopolitically dangerous. As China becomes more expensive and politically complicated, global manufacturers face a choice. Where do we build next? The answer isn't America. It's India. Apple now produces $7 billion worth of iPhones in India annually. In 2021, that number was $1 billion. That's a 7 times increase in 3 years. Samsung just announced a $40 billion investment in Indian manufacturing over the next decade. Foxconn is building the world's largest electronics factory outside New Delhi. Tesla is in final negotiations for a production facility in Gujarat. But labor costs are 60% lower than China, 75% lower than America. But it's not just about cheap labor anymore. India's workforce is skilled, English-speaking, and hungry. McKinsey Global Institute released a report in September 2024 predicting India will capture $500 billion in manufacturing investment by 2030. That's $500 billion in factories, jobs, and economic growth that could have come to the United States. Meet Marcus, 43 years old. Worked at an auto parts plant in Detroit for 19 years. Last November, the plant closed. The company said they couldn't compete with overseas prices. They thanked him for his service and gave him 2 weeks severance. 3 months later, Tata Motors opened an equivalent facility in Chennai, India. Same parts. Same quality standards. 60% lower production costs. Marcus now works at a warehouse for $16 an hour. No benefits. No retirement plan. No future. The engineers in Chennai make $18,000 a year, and they're thriving. They're buying homes. Starting families. Building careers. This is the tale of two futures. The American Rust Belt versus the Indian Manufacturing Belt. And here's what politicians won't tell you. It's not coming back. Those factories aren't returning to American soil. The economics don't work. The math doesn't math. But India's doing something America refuses to do. They're investing relentlessly in infrastructure while America argues over potholes. They're subsidizing education while America drowns students in debt. They're planning 20 years ahead while America can't think past the next election cycle. India just completed a $90 billion infrastructure project connecting every major city with high-speed expressways. America can't even fix the bridges we already have. India is building 100 smart cities with integrated technology, sustainable energy, and modern planning. America is trying to figure out how to get lead out of water pipes in Flint, Michigan. And this next move could change everything about global power. Here's a stat that should make every American economist lose sleep. America's median age, 38.5 years. India's median age, 28.2 years. That 10-year gap is the difference between growth and stagnation. India has 600 million people under the age of 25. That's the largest young workforce on Earth. Twice the entire population of the United States. The UN Population Division's 2024 projections show India's working-age population will grow by 200 million people by 2040. America's? Flat. Stagnant. Aging. Meet Priya. 22 years old. Software developer in Bangalore. makes $35,000 a year. She'll work for another 40 years, paying taxes, building products, innovating. Meanwhile, American baby boomers are retiring en masse, collecting Social Security, straining the system. By 2030, 1 in 5 Americans will be over 65. In India, 1 in 5 will be under 18. Think about the economic implications. While America spends trillions on retirement and healthcare for an aging population, India invests in education, technology, and infrastructure for a youthful, energetic workforce. Social Security is projected to be insolvent by 2034. That's 9 years away. India's workforce is projected to peak in 2040, giving them 15 more years of explosive growth. America is in decline by demography. It's not politics. It's not policy. And here's the brutal reality. You can't reverse demographics. You can't magic up young workers. Immigration could help, but America is building walls and restricting visas while India is educating a generation that will dominate the global economy. This isn't just about jobs. It's about who controls the future economy, who innovates, who builds, who leads. But India has a secret weapon America completely overlooked. And when you understand it, everything clicks. Here's something that will blow your mind. India has more English speakers than the United States. 350 million Indians speak English. America has 280 million native speakers. Language is power. Language is business. Language is influence. Harvard Business Review published a study in March 2024 analyzing why India dominates global outsourcing. The number one factor? English proficiency. Among non-Western nations, India ranked first, not just in speakers, but in business-level fluency. Every customer service call, every tech support ticket, every outsourced contract flows smoother because of this invisible advantage. But it goes deeper. English gives India access to global markets that China can never touch. When a European company wants to outsource, they choose India over China because communication is effortless. When an American company expands internationally, they set up in India because there's no language barrier. When international treaties are signed, business deals negotiated, partnerships formed, English is the language. And India speaks it fluently. And here's where it gets personal. Indian-born CEOs now run Google, Microsoft, Adobe, FedEx, Chanel, Novartis. That's 30% of Fortune 500 tech companies led by Indian executives. They didn't just learn America's language. They mastered it better than Americans. Then used it to climb to the very top of American institutions. Sundar Pichai, Satya Nadella, Shantanu Narayan. These aren't just executives. They're symbols of a larger shift. They represent a generation that learned the game, played by the rules, and won. And they're bringing that knowledge back home. Microsoft's largest R&D center outside the US? Hyderabad. Google's fastest growing office? Bangalore. Adobe's biggest engineering team? Noida. They built their empires in America, then exported the blueprint back to India. But America isn't helpless. There's one thing that could change everything. Because here's the truth the headlines won't tell you. India's greatest strength is also its Achilles heel. Infrastructure. 40% of India's roads are still unpaved. Power grids fail regularly. In summer, major cities experience blackouts. Internet connectivity in rural areas is abysmal. I have friends in India who tell me their power goes out 3 times a week. They all have backup generators. That's not a developed economy. That's a crisis waiting to happen. Water crisis. Niti Aayog, India's policy think tank, released a report in 2024 warning that 21 major cities, including Delhi and Bangalore, are projected to run out of groundwater by 2030. That's 5 years away. Imagine trying to run a tech hub when your employees don't have drinking water. Income inequality. India's top 1% owns 40% of the nation's wealth. The gap between the ultra-rich and everyone else is widening faster than almost anywhere on Earth. Mumbai has billionaires living in skyscrapers next to slums with open sewage. That's not sustainable. That's a powder keg. Pollution. Delhi regularly ranks as the most polluted city on Earth. People wear masks just to walk outside. Respiratory disease is skyrocketing. The World Economic Forum's risk report from January 2025 ranks India's infrastructure as a critical bottleneck to sustained growth. You can't become a superpower if your foundation is crumbling. And America? America still controls AI advancement. OpenAI, Anthropic, Google DeepMind, all headquartered in the US. Space technology, SpaceX, Blue Origin, NASA. Elite universities. Harvard, MIT, Stanford still produce the world's best research. The dollar. Global financial systems. Military dominance. America spends more on its military than the next 9 countries combined. That's power that can't be outsourced. Meet Chen Lu, Chinese-American venture capitalist. Last year, he placed a $50 million bet, split evenly between US tech startups and Indian infrastructure projects. When I asked him why, he said, "I'm not betting on who wins. I'm hedging against who loses." That's the reality. This isn't a zero-sum game. It's not India wins, America loses. It's about adaptation. Because the countries that evolve survive. The ones that don't fade. Which brings me back to Piers Morgan's interview. He asked one simple question that shattered the entire debate. Is India outsmarting America, or is America outsmarting itself? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. India didn't steal anything. They didn't cheat. They didn't hack the system. They just wanted it more. While America got comfortable, India got hungry. While America argued, India built. While America looked inward, India reached outward. Think about it. America invented the internet. India turned it into the world's largest digital payment system. America created Silicon Valley. India created Bangalore and made it cheaper and more efficient. America built the pharmaceutical industry. India made medicine affordable for billions. India didn't win by being better at everything. They won by being better at the things that matter right now. Efficiency, hunger, execution. So here's my question for you, and I really want to know. Would you move to India for half your current salary but triple your quality of life? Or would you stay in America, betting on a comeback? Drop your answer in the comments below. I'm reading every single one because this conversation matters.